My name's Lee Gamble. I'm here at GRM in Paris. It's obviously like a voice simulation project. So I kind of decided to call it models. I've used the term models in some of my other music in terms of simulation or hallucination or a kind of model of something sonically. And but for this, I was trying to, the voices are trained, these neural networks are trained on pop stars, very famous people. So I wanted to kind of like model it in a kind of pop style, if you like. So kind of try and get these voices to mimic phrases, articulations of kind of pop. So in the style of beat is just a kind of like meme-y thing, that meaning like, you dress in the style of someone or you do something in the style of someone else. So the question mark is just in the style of whoever you're training the networks on. From a long time now, I always had an interest in kind of voice and vocal synthesis. So I just found it really fascinating. And then I kind of done a bunch of records that kind of dealt with simulation in some way. Either that kind of like a earworm is a kind of simulation, or a kind of auditory hallucination is a kind of simulation of something you've heard and learned. So it had this like, so immediately when these neural networks became more available, they're open source now, so you can get them. So I'm working with a programmer. As soon as I started looking at these AI systems and particularly neural networks and how they learn, it was really interesting because I just thought, oh, this is really close to the way I was thinking about a hallucinated sound. In 2012, I made an album which was kind of based on the idea of you're in a club, in a rave, you're there for a long time. There's your data set, right? This is what's going in for 12 hours into your own neural network. You go home and maybe you hear something. You're hearing something as you're trying to fall asleep, an earworm, a phrase. It's a similar thing to what a neural network's doing. It's just working with very small pieces of information that it can learn on and understand. So they become these kind of phrases. So we built a neural network to train on. Then we're using a neural network that was built by some other programmers that is a vocal synthesizer. So we get the data, then send it to the vocal synthesizer, and it synthesizes the vocals that you heard. I think what's interesting for me though, as well with the voices and this technology, is not like that, like obviously this idea of deep fake, which really that's what these voices are, they're deep fakes, but that at the moment, what you seem to see is the idea like, okay, we can build somebody and we can build a likeness of them that is imperceptible from them on a YouTube clip or something. You've seen Tom Cruise and people like that. And while that's like really dangerous for sure, it's fascinating, it's strange, it's uncanny valley, it has all these like things that we know. But there's also this part now where you've got this, like these voices I presented here, they're pretty new, like they're quite new. So you hear the artifacts, the sound. And I was kind of intrigued by those because I thought where we are with it now is here. You have these artifacts, these imperfections, like a human, right? Like, and then if you get, maybe when I keep training them like 2 years down the line, if they perfectly mimic someone, it's not so interesting then. There's something lost, like, because then you've just kind of hit a technological end point with that technology. Maybe we'll see what happens, but it feels that way. So I'm not kind of that interested in that. I'm interested more in mixing these things. So for instance, we've got the voices of 2 or 3 different singers, and the idea is to push them together to build a new network, which we're working on still, which will sound not like any one person, but just have like the timbre, the energy, the soul, whatever adjectives you want to put onto it, of these people combined, rather than, oh, here's Whitney Houston, or here's, because this is also a very dodgy ground of ownership and care with these people's voices. They're not yours or they're not mine. So yeah, trying to work around that is also a new phenomenon, I think. Pop also just seems a very interesting area to work in that, and thinking in terms of pop. rather than thinking in terms of an experimental thing, because pop is of course about the voice and about the kind of individual and the image, and that's taken away. These voices don't have any body, they've never been embodied, they've never been alive, they're never going to die, they don't have, they're extremely spectral entities really, and that also interests me and has done for a while. So